A group of the female members of the Basij, a pro-government paramilitary force in Iran, known as the Basiji Sisters, gathered outside the British Embassy in Tehran on the 11th of November and called on Britain to extradite to Iran Dr. Arash Hejazi, who witnessed from close up the deadly shooting of Neda Agha-Soltan during post-election protests in Tehran last August. Hejazi, a physician and writer, was one of the few people who happened to be nearby when Neda was shot during the protests near Tehrans Revolution Square. His name became associated with Neda's death after the video of the scene of murder was instantaneously reflected on TV screens across the world, and his graphic description of the events to the media became unpalatable to the leaders of Iran. Some officials and media of the Islamic Republic have described Neda's murder as, quote, dubious and bogus, designed to, quote, mar the image of the Iranian regime. However, Hejazi started to expose the culprit as soon as he managed to leave Tehran and get back to London to pursue his medical studies. He identified the killer as Abbas Kargar Javid, a member of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps. The alleged killer was arrested for a few minutes by the people near the scene, who checked his identification card before allowing him to leave the scene. The female Basiji demonstrators outside the British Embassy branded Arash Hejazi as the murderer of Neda and called for his extradition from Britain. According to reports received by Washington TV, the demonstrators displayed placards with slogans such as, "Death to the devious England," "America, England, down with your ruse," "The seditious murderer must be extradited," and "Arash Hejazi, murderer of Agha-Soltan." Zohre Elahian, member of the National Security and Foreign Policy Commission of the Majlis, gave a speech at the gathering, which she characterized as, quote, a protest against the killing of an innocent female compatriot perpetrated by foreign intelligence services. She said, quote, "We have gathered before the British Embassy, the country we recognize as the old colonialist, which has a history of treachery vis-a-vis the Iranian nation." The conservative activist went on to say, quote, "After the election, we witnessed England and some Western countries enter a new phase of campaign against Islamic Iran. And if they cannot stand up against us, it is because we are popular in the hearts of Islamic nations." She added, quote, "As you know, Agha-Soltan was killed away from the center of the action. She was killed with a weapon which was not issued to security agents inside Iran. As she was murdered, the scene was filmed from various angles. The bullet that pierced her heart was aimed most skillfully to hit a part of the body that would immediately exude blood from her mouth. This shows that the killer was a professional." The pro-government MP further pointed out, quote, "Fortunately, we can declare with certainty today that the murder has been planned by elements based abroad. We saw other examples of that after the elections, too." In a gathering of the Basiji Sisters, a cloth petition was signed by the participants, which read in part, quote, "We urge the monarchical regime of England to immediately extradite Neda Agha-Soltan's murderer, Arash Hejazi, to the Islamic Republic of Iran, and also hand over to Iran the conspirators behind that murder based in the horrible, hellish MI6 agency to Iran, so that they may be put on trial here." An eyewitness who was by Neda's side in her last moments, Arash Hejazi, has documented the fact that people identified the murderer by checking his personal identification card, which showed that he was a, quote, member of the Sepah. The website of the Green Movement reacted the same evening to the demand of the Basiji Sisters by saying that, quote, "It seems the Basijis, who until yesterday took to the streets covered in burial shrouds to protest possible re-establishment of relations with the U.S., nuclear concessions to the West, and relations with Israel, have nothing to do now, and this boredom has forced them to fish for new excuses to stage events of this sort." The Iranian embassy in London on November 10th took issue with the Queen's College of Oxford University for having instituted a scholarship to honor Neda Agha-Soltan. According to Iran's English-language press TV, the Iranian embassy in London wrote a letter to the Chancellor of Oxford University, accusing it of, quote, political motives in making that decision. The letter claimed that, quote, the interference of a university in the internal affairs of Iran, especially in connection with the events following Iran's elections, fomented with Britain's pivotal role, will result in the decline of the university's scholarly credentials and its scholastic objectives. Financial Times reported that Queen's College announced this same week that 2 generous donations had enabled the college to initiate a scholarship for higher education in philosophy at the doctoral level. The Iranian embassy accused Oxford University of abusing the occasion and emphasized that the death of Neda Agha-Soltan was still under police investigation. Oxford University reacted the day of the Basiji Sisters gathering by emphasizing that its decision was not politically motivated.